We're going live. Whatever happens, we are going live. Welcome to Friday live stream at Grace Westminster channel. We've got a special guest here, Mike Eleftheriades, who is head of Nikon London Group, who's been the head of Nikon London Group for about, 20 years, probably more?
Very long time. Since 2007, I believe.
That's the thing. You don't really see him in the magazine that much, but he does a lot behind the scenes. The workshops that they do in London, the walks, the photo critiques, things like this, but also we haven't done those in the last few years, but we used to have a Christmas dinner where we would get a big place, rent the big place out, and then Mike would do lots of background things there. Everyone, hello. Thanks for waiting for us. We've had a bit of as usual, we have quite a few hiccups just before and after the live stream. So Google decided that it needs to verify who I am, literally at 2:15. And for some reason, they think that I have Android phone. I didn't have Android phone for the last 20 years or so. So that's that. Coffee Fund is open. We are open for your questions. So we're going to talk about virtual reality photography and what that means to you as a photographer, how you can use it and how you can capture it as well. So QQQ in the front of the question as usual. Coffee Fund is open. Let's say hi to everyone. So we got quite a few people in the chat. Roy Bixby is back. Great to see you. Glad you're back. We missed you all. Hello, John. Hello, Eves. Hello, Steve. Steve, keep answering those technical phone calls. So working from home is always good. Okay, who else is here? Let's have a look. Hello, John as well. Len, Dave, Helgi, WWE fan. Wow, I haven't seen WWE for a very long time. William, Randall, Colin, Michael, another Michael, David, Randall, Nick Harrison. Wow, Colin. Great to see you all. Let me ask you a question, Mike. So what is actually virtual reality photography? Because when I'm thinking virtual reality, I'm thinking all those big headsets and video games. That's how I grew up, but what does it mean for photography actually?
Okay, there are many different types of virtual reality photography. Let's say the three main ones are planar, which is when you're taking pictures and just stacking them together. So effectively like in a flat plane.
Okay.
So for example, if you were to use a shift lens and just keep the camera in the same place and shift, that would be a planar panorama.
Okay.
Right? Because you're not shifting the position of your sensor, right? And then there are more complex planar panoramas that you can create. We'll get into that later. There are cylindrical panoramas, which is when you are on a tripod and you are describing a circle, which may not be a 360-degree turn.
Okay.
It may be a partial cylinder, or it may be a 360. And then we have a spherical capture, which is when you're capturing the sphere. So everything around you, above and below you. And that lends itself very well to VR, virtual reality, because then you can transfer that image to your headset and you can be in your photograph.
All right.
And, I have to say, if you've never done it, it's a mind-blowing experience because you are actually inside your own picture.
So put your own virtual reality headsets. Let's get deep into virtual reality. But the question is really, so to simplify it, it's effectively a panorama image. So we all, as a photographer, we know what panorama is, right? So it's several images stitched together, but there's different ways of stitching them. And if we add virtual reality as a headset and things like this, and then if you have a sphere 360 virtual reality, panorama, then by putting the headset on, you can then look around yourself and see the image. So that's the way to simplify it. You can also have, I don't know if you've ever been to Las Vegas, but there's a new thing they built there called Sphere. And you go there and it's basically a screen all around you. So you can look again in, not 360, but I think it's like 270 or something. And it creates this immersive illusion of things happening around you. So think about this way. The quick question that we had from Pompey here, he said, is it photography at all? Well, yes, because you have to capture those images. You can't just 3D model them because there wouldn't be a photography. But if you have to use the camera and you have to use accessories to capture the image, that means it's a photography.
Yeah. And you have to just make some decisions at the beginning, how you're going to do this. We'll talk a little bit in more detail later on, but effectively, from a technical standpoint, what you're doing is you're capturing an image, and you are converting this. The normal standard on the internet is HTML5, and basically what you're converting your image is into what's called a cubical perspective, a cubical projection, right? And I've got an example here to show you.
We have an analog cubical projection for you.
So this is a panorama taken in Japan, and these are the 6 faces of the cube, right? So when you capture your sphere, right, you do your editing, your corrections, all of those things, you end up with a cube, okay. Remarkably. So effectively, there are 6 faces of the cube that you are enveloped in, okay? So I've got another example to show you. So this is effectively the cube looking outwards. But if you can imagine that you are inside this cube, right?
So effectively those walls are inverted inside, and you are in the middle of it. You are inside,
exactly. And these are the seams here, because obviously this was cut out of card. But because these are continuous as far as the images meet here, you don't actually see these lines. But what you're effectively doing is you are looking around this cube, okay? So it's just basically, in a very simplistic manner, you are basically looking at 6 faces of a cube, which are JPEGs. That's what the HTML conversion does for you.
I
see. If you're looking at a panorama on the web or with a VR headset, this is in effect what you see.
I see. Okay. And if you want to take it another level, some places allow you to walk around the spaces, but obviously you are inside the virtual reality headset as well. There's a space in King's Cross in London called the Lightroom. They did this big David Hockney exhibition on just the best works. And it's effectively what they did is you walk inside the big room, and there are projectors everywhere. So not just the walls around you, but also on the ceiling and the floor. So you can walk around, and each kind of side of the wall will project a different thing. So you can watch the presentation. I think it's about 30 minutes long or so. But you can spend hours there just watching different screens and what's happening around you. Yeah. So that's another way of not having actually virtual reality headset, but you being yourself inside that space.
Yeah, that's right. And, when Lightroom opened, David Hockney was their first kind of exhibit. It's about an hour long. And I have to say, for all of us that started in virtual reality, it was like, it was our dream to see this happening in real life, to be enveloped in images and to see it come alive is absolutely superb. I mean, it was a brilliant presentation. Yeah.
Did you back up Oculus Rift on Kickstarter? Because I did.
Well, I have a lot of VR heads,
For very different reasons, but I'm sure you had like Google Cardboard and all that.
I have a Google Cardboard, and I have an original, it's called Sony Glastron. It was the original Sony
That's way before me,
headset.
Okay.
But I'll tell you a couple of interesting stories with the Glastron. When we started wanting to exhibit our pictures, we realized very early on that because these are not battery powered, these required a battery supply, right? You had all these different manufacturers making all the different parts. So, for example, there was a USB tracker that had to be fixed onto the Glastron at the back of your head.
Okay.
Right? Another cable to the computer.
Yeah.
You had the power cable and you had the video cable as well.
Oh, I see, because it was an analog connection. Yeah, so it's one of those CRT things. Yeah,
and, when we started to experiment with real people, we realized that people were turning around and getting tangled and strangling themselves
happened
in
to
cables.
me on Oculus Rift. The more modern version of headsets, they also had to be wired to PC, because your PC would be your processing unit effectively.
Yeah.
And what you would see is obviously would project onto the screen next to your eyes. But the current modern headsets like Oculus Quest and those are already wireless. So they have literally kind of a mobile processor built in that processes everything for you. So people are kind of getting there, and they think, so we're talking about 360 degrees cameras and images.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, just to continue on what you're saying, just to finish off, So a VR head has a tracking system inside, which basically tracks the movement of your head, basically. And what it does, it synchronizes the motion of the images so that it's in sync with where you're looking. And again, as we were doing early experiments, what we discovered was that if it's out of sync, even by a small amount, or if you're looking towards the right and the image spins the other way, you very, very quickly feel unwell.
Yes. Yeah. There's a whole expression. There's a whole thing called VR legs, and that means that you got to use it for quite some time to kind of adjust to that reality. I had this thing where I was playing a racing game, I crashed, and I wanted to go back. And once I started to move the car back, my brain just got all messed up. And then I had to go to sleep for 2 hours because I couldn't see. I felt really sick.
Yeah, you feel very unwell because your body, your inside of your ears is telling you where the horizon is, where you are in space, and you are in sync. Your eyes are telling you where you are, right? And all of this is working together. And if you've got your eyes giving your brain different information than your ears, right, you very, very quickly feel unwell. Another reason I think maybe, younger children, for example, are not supposed to wear VR heads.
That's true, yes.
And also, in my experience, the first people that tried on, they feel slightly queasy. They feel slightly unwell, again, because they're not seeing their body. They're floating in space.
That's true. You do feel nauseous, yeah.
Again, because one of the reasons is that the cameras, if we just look at my cube again, there is a blind spot, which is at the bottom usually, because the tripod is at the bottom. The camera, even with a fisheye lens, cannot see directly underneath it.
Oh, I see. Can you just cut it out?
So what we do is there is a technique called patching. So we patch that hole, right? And when you're observing this virtual reality panorama, you are looking underneath you and you are floating. You don't see your body, you are floating in space. And again, that makes you feel slightly kind of unwell.
Well, you disconnect the reality, isn't it? So you're not sure because you feel you're there, but at the same time, you feel like something's not right.
Yeah, because yes, you can't feel yourself, but we are dealing with this. So we will have avatars in the future, and we're going to show you an example later on, I hope. But one of the things that we're working on is because you can actually touch things within the virtual space, and you can do that with a sort of, it's like a laser beam that kind of shows you where you're pointing. But we will in the future be able to have hands. We are going to have virtual hands.
There is already hand tracking. There's a lot.
Yes, there is hand tracking, but we will have hands inside the panoramas, which are computer generated, which again, at least you'll be able to see your hands. That's a start.
That's cool. I mean, I'm looking at the conversation in the chat, and people bring AI into the mix and say that because it's kind of virtual reality is not something that we talk a lot about photography, and there's obviously those are all new things, and we're not sure what to do with this. But let's say Seth in the chat, he's saying, so this is essentially the next evolution of formats, or for us still to be photographers when the machines take over. I guess someone will have to take those pictures. I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like we get already the tools that, that effectively you can program to take a panorama with one click, where it's on the head and it will take several amount of images up and down certain degrees, and then everything's going to be stitched up in the software. I mean, you can automate those things quite a bit. How did you get into this place?
Well, let me just, since we're talking about AI, I just want to talk about how we use AI on creating these panoramas, because there are some very nice practical applications. Okay. So I'm not talking about using AI to generate complete imaginary worlds and things like that. But one of the things that we do nowadays is, in the past, we had to photograph the ground, right? We had to shift our whole rig, our whole camera and tripod, and physically photograph the ground so that we can plug that hole. Now we use Photoshop's generative fill, which is an AI powered, and it imagines what that ground is like. And it recreates the tiles, it creates the carpet, so you don't have to physically photograph it anymore. So for us, generative AI has been absolutely amazing in giving us that capability. I mean, that's a real time saver.
So there is a right way to use it. Obviously, when people say, "Oh, AI will do everything for me." No. If you know how to use it to do certain parts for you, you can still be original and use it.
It fills that hole for us. And the other example is, if you are photographing from a very tall building, let's say, as I've done a number of times, or another example, if you are photographing a car interior, right? Because normally you would put your camera in the center, where you would have a glove box, or you would have the old cars had the handbrake, or you might have the gear lever. So you don't want to obscure it with your camera. So what you do is you actually have the camera going in sideways through a window. Okay. Because remember that because you're capturing a sphere, your camera doesn't actually have to be level, right? The camera can be in any direction.
Okay.
So when we're photographing a car interior, we do it sideways. Okay. So you are in the picture. So in both when we are capturing from a tall building, or when you're holding that tripod or monopod, and you are in the picture. So again, we use generative AI to remove ourselves from the picture, because when you're doing spherical, you have to hide somewhere. You're inevitably in the picture.
You can't get away. That's true.
You can't get out of it.
So people asking, how did you get into this? Is it Colin asking, how did you get into this? Was it through your personal work?
Well, I studied architecture, so I had an interest in capturing three-dimensional space and architectural space. So yes, that's what started it for me. Yeah.
And then you started to take panoramas, and I know that back in the day you had a panorama workshop with Nikon, and that's evolved into virtual reality panoramas. Is that correct?
Yes. As the technology evolved, yes, they became something that you could wear. But I mean, if we go back a bit, and we might show some of my early, if we got that presentation.
Let's have a look. Maybe. Let's see if it's...
So these, as you can see how old that is, 1999, these panoramas were actually shot with a wide-angle attachment on a Nikon Coolpix, would you believe?
Okay.
Yeah, because I've owned every single model of Coolpix. And the Coolpixes were wonderful because, you had that wide-angle attachment and you had a fisheye attachment as well. So they were very, very versatile cameras for capture.
Okay.
So these are interesting because these are cylindrical panoramas. And if you avoid shooting the top and the bottom, right, you end up with what looks like a conventional photograph.
I see.
And the interesting thing for me is the first photograph there at the top, people say to me, oh, that looks like multiple photos. It just looks like multiple photos because there are vertical elements that kind of segregate the picture. But in actual fact, that's a 360-degree cylinder.
I see.
So the moral of this particular example is that if you shoot cylinders, they can look like conventional photographs. They don't look like panoramas. But you can convert this into a format that you can basically play that back on the web. And in the web, of course, it will be a window through this particular space. And you'll be able to wander left and right. Okay? Because it's a cylinder, remember, you don't have top and bottom. But the next step is if you do a spherical panorama, then you've got top and bottom, but you end up with a picture which is more distorted. If you wanted to use that as a, as a photograph, it will be much more distorted.
That's true. That's true.
So again, another way of thinking about it is if you're more of a fine art photographer and you wanted to produce panoramas, then cylindrical would be a better way to go.
Okay.
Right? If you were wanting to go for virtual headsets or a full experience on the web, then you would probably go spherical.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's simplify it a little bit because let's say David is Moscori is saying this is a bit over my head, but it would be cool to do this in the middle of intersection on the Mission Street, that's San Francisco, hopefully without getting run over or getting mugged as well. So let's say if a person wants to take a 360 panorama, or let's just say 180 panorama for now. Well, 360 but without top and bottom. What do they need? What equipment do they need really?
Well, ideally, you want a wide angle lens. So you want to kind of gauge what sort of wide angle you need by the space that you're in. But I would say any wide angle sort of between 18 millimeters to 24, let's say, would give you a good cylindrical panorama.
Okay. Where would you use fisheye over, let's say, rectangular wide-angle lens?
So you would use a fisheye if you wanted to capture less pictures, so it's quicker, and if you wanted to do spherical, because the fisheye will be able to, with just 3 shots or maybe 4, you would be able to capture the whole space.
I see. Do you need a fancy tripod head to do that?
Yeah.
So you told me that this whole panorama industry, tripod head industry has evolved quite a bit.
Yes.
So I know that the basic one, you would just have increments on the head where you would do everything manually. So what do they have nowadays?
Okay. So at the beginning, right, there were dedicated heads for specific cameras. So there were dedicated heads available for the Coolpix, for example, which gave you the right increment and positioned the camera exactly in the right place, depending on whether you use the wide angle or the fisheye lens, right? Now, and when I started, there were a new generation of panoramic heads. I used the heads from a company called 360 Precision.
Okay.
Right? So they started with the Absolute, then they had the Adjust, then they had the Atom. And these heads, they had a number of advantages. They were lighter. They allowed you to position the camera to the right place. And we'll talk about that in a second, why you would want to do that. And you were able to change the increment depending on whether you were shooting a spherical panorama or a cylindrical. So with a cylinder, you need more shots because you've got a wide angle. The camera is vertical and describing the circle. If you're on a spherical, on a fisheye, you have fewer shots.
I see.
Yeah. So you can change the increment very, very quickly. Just to talk about why you need a head.
Why do we need to spend more money?
Yes. Why you need a panoramic head? Why? Because if you're shooting things that are very far away, right, you can shoot handheld, or because there's no parallax to worry about. Everything is far away, right? The closer things are to you, and particularly when you have things that are close and far, you have parallax. The parallax changes from photograph to photograph, the perspective, if you like, between things. So there is an amazing kind of optical principle of lenses, which is they have a position within them where the light rays converge as they come into the lens, right? And we call that the entrance pupil.
All right.
Some people call it the nodal point, but it's the entrance pupil.
And in a normal English, how would that sound?
Well, it's basically where the light rays converge in the lens as they come in for the first time.
Okay.
Right? So what the panoramic head does is it positions the lens in the right place so that you don't have this problem with parallax. You don't have this problem with the different perspective. The images match perfectly.
Okay, so we're talking about stitching, David, but because precision is more important for this type of shots, that's where panoramic head helps us to define the position of the camera when we're taking the shots. Okay.
Yes. The best way to think about it is that the head positions the camera so that the lens is in the right place. It's important that the lens is in the right place, not the camera.
Not the camera.
Not the camera. Yeah.
I'm with you.
So the lens has to be in the right place.
It's getting quite technical, folks. Bear with us. I'm going to ask the follow-up questions, but that's the idea. I think with those things, you can go really, really deep. We're trying to keep it light, but there are certain things that are quite important to grasp right at the beginning, isn't it?
Yes. Now, one of the more recent developments is, of course, if you want the highest quality panoramas, you know, a Nikon Z8 or a Nikon Z6 II or a Z7 II, because you've got, again, cumulative resolution of these many images, you've got 100 megabyte, 200 megabyte images easily. So you've got incredible quality, right? But the latest development is that in the last maybe 10 years, we have spherical cameras especially for virtual reality.
So what, 360 cameras?
We have 360 cameras. So we have Insta360, we have the Ricoh Theta series. So basically these are quite small cameras. They have smaller sensors, of course, than your Nikon, and they have two fisheye lenses. Yeah. Of course, we had the Nikon key mission as well.
What I want to ask you. You kind of like politely ignored mentioning.
Well, we had the Nikon key mission. Unfortunately, it was a short-lived product, but yes, that did the job as well.
Have you tried it? Have you tried it?
I tried it.
What was your opinion about it?
It was working well. Yeah, it was working well. So obviously not.
Why did they drop it then? What was the reason?
Well, I think it was not in the current business plan.
I see.
But it was a good camera, and it provided good results, and there were special caps for the lenses to protect them and things like that.
Yeah, for me, it's just like Nikon One system. Key Mission 360 just doesn't exist. I just pretend to ignore
it doesn't exist anymore.
I'm just firing shots and showing the port.
There are
good products.
Yeah, there are many products now in the market. But I have to say, if I was doing one-shot panoramas, currently my camera of choice would be the Ricoh Theta Z1.
Okay.
It's a great camera. It produces wonderful results. It does RAW, so it does DNG, and it also stitches on board. Of course, you can drive all of these cameras from your smartphone, so you see the results. You can bracket. So if you want to do this professionally and at a slightly lower price point, one-shot VR cameras are kind of hot sellers at the moment.
I mean, I'm thinking about 360 panoramas or views of Google Maps 360 views. Yes, so the car passing by with the 360 camera. Is it 360 camera or is it?
It's a 360 camera.
360 camera. That's a good example of it. Can you see Google Maps Street View through virtual reality headset?
Yeah,
is that a thing?
Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. But I'll tell you what we can do. Many of my panoramas are on Google Maps, because when we create panoramas, they're in a standard HTML format. And depending on the software that you use to generate your panoramas, you have a conduit through Google Maps. And you can send your photographs to Google Maps, and they need to get approved, because if you have people showing faces, they will probably be rejected.
That's right, you need to blur, right? So but yes, you did the official 360 tour of Grace of Westminster back in the day, I think way before you and I started to work here. Yeah. But I think you did this where you could click on Grace of Westminster, just gets you straight to the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did that. So that's the way to do that, basically.
Yeah.
But you can also show the virtual panoramas in the browser. You just need to use some sort of JavaScript to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't use JavaScript, but basically what we do, what you're touching upon is this concept of nodes. So effectively, each panorama is a node, is a position in space, right?
Okay.
And because our panoramas are photographic based, right? They are image based.
Yes.
The nodes are the positions where you have taken the photograph. And what you can do is you can link those nodes in your software.
I see.
And you can say, I'm walking from here to here.
I see. Right? That's how you can go from one room to another, effectively switching from one panorama to another panorama.
Exactly.
In preparation to that, I went to Yosemite website. This is Yosemite, California virtual tours, where they show you the whole map of the national park. and they show you different points.
Exactly.
So you can go there and have a 360 panorama straight away.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we can add a map, or if it's a building, if it's a space, we can add a plan, and you can click on those nodes. And then we have a special technique, which is either a fade or a kind of push, which pushes the image across, and it gives you the illusion that you are stepping from one node to another, and that gives you the illusion that you're walking through space.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's interesting. I'm just gonna quickly send the link to the chat about the Yosemite National Virtual Yosemite is called. Have a look, guys, at that while you listening to us.
Yes.
That should give you a good idea. And I think, Mike, you had some links as well to share with us.
Yes. If you shall I find the link?
Yeah. Have a look at this one. That's a virtual Yosemite. And obviously you can see it in your browser in 2D, but if you've got a virtual headset, you can also go there as well.
Can you publish that link, please, Konstantin? The
Definitely.
one I sent you earlier. So what we're going to send now is, this is basically the latest interactive VR project that I've been working on, and it's a VR tour of a very famous listed church in the Hampstead Garden suburb, very famous building. It has wonderful wall paintings by a guy called Walter Starmer.
Okay.
Are we showing that live?
I can show it live,
Yes.
actually. If people like, okay, let me just see if I can go full screen on this.
Yeah. So just
want to hide all my tabs, really.
yes, okay.
Let's see, window. It's supposed to be F11, but there's no F11 on the MacBook. Let me see.
Okay.
All right, we get in there. Is there a way to make it enter full screen? Here we go. Here we go. Let's go. So here we go. We got live introduction. So that's your latest work.
So everybody can see that? Yeah, I hope so.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's coming. Yep.
Okay. So basically, where you got the hotspots. So
Yes.
the hotspots are there to show you where you can navigate to. Because if you don't have those hotspots, basically you won't know what to do. So constantly navigate. It's fine, and it won't go wrong.
Oh, I'm walking.
Yes. So you're walking through now to the main space. So there's the organ. And the I boxes are basically information, because this is for a website which is to do with our heritage, and basically we want to display what is important and famous about this building. So the I positions are basically information boxes. So they tell you. So if you look up, Konstantin, if you look up at the
Oh, I see.
You have information on the murals, why they're important, just basically simple facts. And again, I wanted to, when I designed this, I wanted to keep this as simple as possible. I didn't want, huge amounts of information, just little snippets of info just to explain what is important. Yeah.
So each point where we move, it's each individual panorama, effectively.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and the software basically links all of these nodes together, and the data, the content.
And if you have a virtual reality headset, then you can move your head around and see everything.
If you can click on the little 3 dots on the bottom.
Yes. Okay.
Now, what you should see is if you're using a VR head, you will get another button there, which is the VR button. Basically, when you go into VR mode, basically it displays that panorama in your virtual reality headset.
I'm sorry, I have to go there. Where's my gun and where are the monsters?
Now, let me tell you a couple of other things. If you try this, if you were to load this on your mobile,
yes,
right? If you turn your mobile through 90 degrees and click on that button, it goes into cardboard mode, which is the Google Cardboard.
Oh, I see. Okay.
and it will tell you to position it in cardboard mode. And then what you get is what's called side-by-side mode. So it will display this panorama in two images, one for the left eye and one for the right eye. So if you were to put it in Google Cardboard, you get, they are the same image. So we haven't yet started talking about stereographic panoramas. But
brace yourself.
But anyway, this basically displays this in a mode that you can view through an affordable VR headset or through Google Cardboard, which is the most affordable headset that you can buy. So this is just to kind of recap and summarize. This is what is exciting to me about virtual reality panoramas. They have so many uses. You can print, you can create 3D photos, right? You can view them through a window on the web, right? And you can go inside them in virtual reality. So this is, I think, what's very exciting about this technology.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I'm just looking, and some people are confused.
Okay.
And I guess you don't like, you either into virtual reality or you completely ignore it. So I can see. I mean, it's one of the things. Virtual reality is not as present as in kind of in the modern world. It is there, but again, for keen enthusiasts. And obviously, there's a whole Apple VR thing that just came out, which is very, very expensive. But do you think the virtual reality, especially the headsets, becoming cheaper and mainstream, it's gonna become a part of our life? And when do you think it's going to happen?
Well, I don't know is the answer, but all I can say is that the people who try these headsets and they view my photos, I get a big kick out of it. Why? Because the first reaction is, wow. This is amazing. It's amazing to be able to do this.
So you got to see it in the headset, ideally, to appreciate that.
Well, they are visible on the web, so you can view them on the web. You basically use your mouse to navigate, right? So you are looking through a window, if you like, through that virtual world. So that's absolutely fine. And of course, if you're in a classroom, you can have a whole group looking at something at the same time. But at the same time, and at my daughter's school, they already do this. They give them VR sets and they take them to Mexico, to see the pyramids,
That's the cheapest holiday I've ever had.
Well,
just put the VR
they
headset
explain, history, what happened in the Yucatan Peninsula using VR. You can't take that whole classroom, especially when they're young, but you can take them using VR. And for me, that's a fantastic application. The church that you just viewed, the idea is because it's in the Hampstead Garden suburb, it's a historical area, right? Conservation area in London. The idea is that people will experience it across the world and be there and view it. So that's, I don't think people will walk around with VR heads, but certainly if you want to experience something and the head is affordable, it's a wonderful way to experience space. And, I can give you many examples. I mean, when we did a workshop, a Nikon workshop, for example, at the De Havilland Museum, where they have these beautiful old fighters, propeller-based planes. And we weren't allowed to go inside. Obviously, it's difficult. But what I did was I put my VR camera through with a long monopod, and I captured the interior. So I was able to show people what the interior of this, propeller fighter jet was, fighter plane from the late 30s, 40s. We were able to experience what it was like to sit in that cockpit, right, virtually. And again, that's a good practical example of an application for this technology. I think there are many.
I was checking the prices on VR headsets, and I think Oculus Quest 2 is about £175 nowadays.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not very expensive, and it's a wireless VR, and obviously they have version 3 now, which is a lot more expensive. But back in the day, you would pay thousands. I mean, the Steam version of vibration reduction virtual reality would be like £1,000, and the original Oculus Quest was about £600. That Apple new headset is
Apple
very
Vision
expensive.
Pro.
Yeah, I don't even know what the price is, but it's a lot, isn't it?
Not available in the UK yet.
Oh, I see. That's why. Okay.
The people who have tried it said it's the most amazing experience of my life, but I'm not going to buy one. But I think that once that technology becomes popular and the numbers in production increase, I think the prices will come down, and I think more people will basically use them.
I'm just going to go through the chat, and just to answer T2BB question about, he's saying how he was shooting panoramas from 1990s, and obviously panoramas been a while. With Phil Cornelius' answer, where he said 360 panoramas have been around for a while, but technology is much better now, and it's becoming much more widely used and accepted. And I think because that information is not really, like, I was trying to look at the panorama, like there's not much stuff actually available on the internet. It's not your wildlife photography, let's say, it's not your beauty photography, things like this. So while this information is niche, I think it's interesting to quite a lot of people. And as you say, with the kind of virtual reality headsets becoming kind of more mainstream, I think it's going to still probably take another 10 years. Who knows? I mean, once we can get the visuals, Apple Vision Pro thing for like £500 or £300, I think that's going to be more interesting. Obviously, Microsoft has their own, what they call holo thing, hologlass or whatever that they had. Once we start to see more of those things and they become a lot more smaller, then we'll start to see a more wide use of those things. And from personal perspective, I can tell you that experiencing a 360 panorama in virtual headset is definitely another level than seeing it just on the screen of a browser or on the screen of a phone. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really a life-changing experience. I mean, I can't describe the joy of going inside your own photographs. It's something you're not normally able to do, but it really is an incredible experience. And I mean, my daughter is a good example. When she sees me experimenting, and by the way, I usually experiment at night, right, with a VR head. I don't walk around the house with a VR head during the day. But anyway, when she tries it on, she gets into that picture, and, she's experiencing that space the way I did when I shot it.
Yeah.
And, it's a very unique experience.
We have a video, a couple of my friends who I kind of gave my VR headsets to try out while they were in our house. And you can just see them giggling and smiling naturally when they experience it for the first time. Because until you try, it's very difficult to explain what you're going to see. And you see a genuine smile, of joy when they try that. There's a question from Jay Blue. He said, would you ask Mike if a real-time VR is possible? I can think of various use cases for it.
Yes, of course. Real. Yes, of course.
So how would that work, real-time? I mean, I guess it's not streaming it, but it's...
Well, it's streaming, yes, because we have the spherical cameras that we have today. Mm-hmm. Most of them have a streaming capability. So you just basically link them to YouTube. YouTube has VR capability already, Facebook as well, Flickr. So basically, you are able to stream a spherical image. And I know... in the past, I don't know whether they still do it, but many concerts have been shot in spherical VR.
Sports games?
Yeah, I presume sports games, So you can go in and you can experience, and of course, Apple, I know, are very interested in this, and I know Apple have developed various 3D spherical cameras because... The next layer, if you like, is stereoscopic VR. Okay, so instead of a single camera doing VR, we have two together in tandem, which gives you depth information. Okay.
So normal VR, you still feel like it's in 3D, but you don't feel the depths. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you see a slightly different image for the left eye as you do for the right eye, and it gives you a perception of depth.
Wow.
So now we're going into spatial video. That's what spatial video is. It's a three-dimensional video.
My brain,
yes,
it just starts to melt at this point. I think there's some sparkles.
Yes, but anyway, in answer to the question, yes, you can stream spherical video, and you can experience it as if you're there live.
Well, Jay Blue, I want to hear from you. What kind of use cases do you have in mind? So you can just put them in the comments below. And thank you very much, Vince, for Coffee Fund. He says, when will they introduce a virtual coffee? I'll take analog coffee any day. That's for sure.
Okay.
But who knows? Maybe we'll just be plugged in, 24/7, and we won't ever need to move anymore. Who knows,
Yes, I mean, hopefully not, but...
I've read cyberpunk novels,
Yeah, but, the advantage of the Apple Vision Pro is because it's so high resolution, right? Mm-hmm. You can wear that head on an airplane, and you can watch a movie, and you can work on your laptop. You can do multiple things as if you're in a virtual office.
Exactly, and then you just be looked at by the whole plane, just be looking at you, So as long as you can feel the pressure, someone burning a hole in your head.
And one of the biggest applications is
virtual headset since we got our dog Tilly is because I'm just worried that I'm going to kick her up because I won't see her while I'm fighting some skeleton in a dungeon, So, but another thing I want to ask you, is what's called photogrammetry or something like this, where they would digitize the space in 3D and then you can actually walk around and see that. Would be interesting application of photography as well for 3D use?
Well, okay. So what you're talking about there is. For example, Matterport, and I know there are various drones that can do this now. They basically fire a very high-speed laser in a space. Okay. And it basically creates a 3D model of the room, of the space.
So when the laser hits, something is bouncing back, and that's how you create
it measures the distance, right?
So it almost creates a volumetric
3D model.
Okay.
And the advantage of that over the technology that we've been talking about today, because we're talking about photographic.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Is you have a 3D model that you can navigate through.
Yeah.
So you don't have these nodes anymore, right? But you'll see that these 3D models are slightly rough, right? They have a sort of computer-generated feel.
Yes.
They don't have a photographic-based reality. They seem like a 3D model. So yes, they're very good for certain applications, like for example, testing buildings, testing bridges, testing the integrity of structures.
I think Mike is gone for some reason. Hold on. Is Mike's sound gone? Try it.
Yeah, so you can test the integrity of structures, but you don't have, in my view, you don't have an image which is as photographic as a quality image. Is it still?
Mike.
Is it?
Let's put Mike next to Mike.
Okay. Is that better?
I think it's better if you could just say what you just said.
Just repeat it.
In last hour, I think. Yeah. So that people missed all this.
So people weren't hearing what I was saying.
Well, say it's working now. So if you just repeat your last 10 sentences.
Yeah. So basically, the virtual reality capture that you're describing uses a very high-speed laser, which measures the distance to objects, works out colors, and it creates a very, very complex 3D model. And the advantage of that is that you can navigate through it.
Oh, I see.
So that's a more fluid type of virtual reality because you have a 3D model, right? But it's not as accurate as a photographic model. because it doesn't describe, it's not a photograph anymore, it's a 3D model, right?
Always.
So it can be rough in places, it can be wonderful in others. It certainly has its applications. We mentioned, structures, bridges, all of those things. And now we have drones able to do this kind of, 3D photography. I prefer the photographic-based VR because it's a photograph. All of the issues about photographic composition, the decisive moment, exposure, they're all in this, right? I'm not into creating 3D models.
I'm with you. Thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate it. Okay, so if, let's say, we assume that people who are watching us, they're Nikon users, they highly likely have a Nikon mirrorless camera. What would be the basic setup, like literally bare bones setup with the stuff they probably already have at home, so they can actually try maybe to capture a spherical panorama? What do they need? So obviously camera, lens, what tripod, what head, and what software, so they can try it out. Very basic bare bones on a budget, let's say that. And hopefully they already have some of the stuff at home, like camera and the lens.
Okay, well, if you, I think the easiest thing would be, first of all, to do planar panoramas, because then you're shooting 2 or 3 images and putting them together. And you can use any application, Affinity, Photoshop. You can do blending, blend the images together.
And there's a panorama mode in Photoshop that you can use, and you can add the images there.
Yeah. And Photoshop has obviously its own panoramic mode. And again, it's brilliant because you don't have to shoot everything in sequence.
Yeah.
You can just throw the pictures at it, decide the projection, and 9 times out of 10, it gives you a good result.
I was on the train in Japan once. I took 4 pictures, while the train was moving, one after another one. I put it in Photoshop, I created a panorama.
Yeah. And
they weren't even level, just lined everything up. Amazing.
Lightroom as well, and Lightroom Classic have the same capability to do panoramas, and they can also do HDR panoramas as well. The only thing where they fall down a little bit is if they're cylinders and they have to stitch all the way around.
Well, let's say they got a headset now. Yeah, so they got Oculus for £175, or they have a Google Cardboard. They want to create a cylindrical panorama of their office or something. So what do they need? So they got the camera. What lens would be recommend for them?
If it's an interior, the wider lens you've got, basically. Because,
so 14 to 30? Or
1430, 14 to 24.
If you got fisheye, that would
fisheye, as I said before, less frames. So 4 frames with a fisheye, that would be enough. And then you have to find some sort of stitching software.
Okay, what's the stitching software would you recommend for this type of work?
Well, the professional's choice is a program called PT GUI.
PT GUI.
PT GUI.
Okay.
PT stands for Panoramic Tools, and GUI is, user interface.
Graphic user
interface. Graphical user interface. So PT GUI, it's by a Dutch company, and there is a standard version and there's a professional version. But if you want to stitch professionally, PT GUI would be the user's choice. Would be the
how
best
easy
choice.
it is. So let's say I've got 4 shots, left, right, bottom, up, and down. Let's say 1 shot onto one.
It's fairly easy, but it can be very involved.
Is it as easy as pixel shift in the Nenex Studio, where you just select the stack and it just converts everything for you, or you still need to do something?
No, you need to tweak it. You need to tweak it. I mean, it's gotten much better over the years, and it can work things through, very, very well, but you may need to tweak certain elements of it. And it's good to understand how it works, And
then what does it create? What kind of file does it create once it's complete?
It creates an image, basically, which then you'd have to somehow find a way to, you upload it to Facebook.
Okay.
And you can upload it to Flickr, right? You may need another piece of software from, I can't remember now, Google or Meta have a tool which allows you to convert the data into a format that can be played as a VR file.
So once you uploaded this, then you go to the browser in your headset and you load that.
Yes, I mean, as long as you've got this data within the file that Facebook or YouTube recognize as VR, then the VR is enabled, and then you can view the VR file online.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you gonna do some workshops on that?
Yes, we are. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I haven't done a workshop for a while, and I'm dying to do a workshop. I think it's the right time.
Because I think this way, it's a lot of people kind of they kind of have the idea, but then once it gets to technical side of things, that's where it becomes a little bit murky. And I think it's even what we're trying to explain now. I can see just on the chat that it is quite tough. So I think like a proper workshop would be quite useful for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I very much have it in mind. I very much want to do it. I think it's. I think it will be a very exciting thing to do. I have the course pretty much already in place. I mean, it doesn't have the most recent things, but certainly yes, we're planning to do something. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
If you have a question in the meantime, then probably just get in touch with Mike directly, and hopefully he can assist you on that.
Sure.
Any panoramic heads you can recommend us? But if I feel like spending money on things.
Well, unfortunately, the company that I used to use, they don't make those particular heads anymore. Mm-hmm. But I think if you're looking for a relatively affordable head, I would look at Nodal Ninja.
Nodal Ninja. Okay.
Nodal Ninja. It's an American company. There are also, I think, very, very capable panoramic heads from Novaflex. Mm-hmm. They've been doing them a long time. But the other thing to mention is this, that if you understand the principles, you can actually make your own VR head. You can buy Arca Swiss plates. You can buy long plates. Yeah. And it's not that difficult to make your own.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember that it's just something to position the camera in portrait orientation, right? To rotate and take a number of shots.
To certain degrees, basically. So you just need precision. So if you're taking 90-degree shots, they have to be 90.
And if you, we didn't speak about tripods at all, but any tripod will do. But the ones that I've been using for a long time, Manfrotto, because they have a leveling center column. Okay. That is a special part. It goes into the middle where you normally have your upper part of the tripod. Mm-hmm. And it has a lever on the bottom, which you turn. And the main benefit is that you've got your spirit level on the camera, irrespective of how the ground is. You basically use that leveling column to level the camera very quickly. Okay. Because you level, you're there, the camera doesn't move. And then you're assured that the camera is going to rotate and it's going to be fully level.
Incredible.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend those kinds of tripods.
All right, let's have a look at the chat. Did you hear any rumbles about Nikon getting into VR or 360?
No.
That was
yes. I don't know whether we can mention the C company. Can we mention the C company?
Which one?
Could we mention companies beginning with C?
Is that the famous printer company?
Yes.
We don't use C words in here. Okay. You mean Canon? Is that
what
it is?
Canon. Yes. Canon have a twin spherical lens which they make. But interestingly, Canon said recently that even our cameras, they said, don't have the resolution for the Apple Vision Pro yet.
Okay.
So Apple Vision Pro requires very, very, very high-end gear.
So it's still very developing.
Yeah, it's a very, very, yes. And I'm sure, Nikon are always looking over their shoulders to see, how they can add value. And I'm hoping, either some enterprising company or maybe Nikon themselves. Because, going back through the years, and again, we're going to talk about Coolpix again. Coolpix from the very beginning, the first Coolpix was in 1998, a 1.2 megapixel camera, right? It had a wide lens and a fisheye, and that was
attachment.
They go to the front of the lens. There's an adapter for the one of them, but that's incredible foresight. Nikon had this market at the beginning to themselves. And I hope that, looking at what's happening in the game industry, in the VR industry, I hope that, they'll take the initiative.
Incredible. Well, thank you, Mike, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Hope it's been useful.
Would you see the virtual reality talk?
Yes.
On the internet. We try to do something different. So, we can always talk about Z8 every week, but we choose not to. So thanks so much for coming over. If you're subscribed to Nikon magazine and you live in London, then I'm sure you hear from Mike quite often because they do events, they do walks. What was the last walk you did? That was very recent. That was yesterday, wasn't it?
We had a walk yesterday, which was the gallery photo walk. We went to see a fantastic exhibition. We went to the V&A photography gallery, and the previous two were at Battersea Power Station.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So we do a lot of walks, yeah.
And also they do workshops and seminars. They also do them online as well. So if you haven't subscribed to Nikon's magazine yet, so there's a digital subscription, so you can get access to over 20 years of magazines straight away, as well as the latest ones. You also will get discounts of the workshops and seminars. You can go to nikonshop.com, use KON15 code for £15 of digital subscription. So you're welcome to do that. But in the meantime, thank you very much for joining us today. We're not going to talk about virtual reality panoramas taken on film. I think we're going to leave it for another time.
Yes, let's leave it for another time.
Large format.
Let's see what the feedback is like, and then we can do something in the future if you're all interested in this subject.
Fantastic, fantastic. If you have any other niche ideas that you want us to try, we had some other idea we want to talk about, and I forgot about what, but we will discuss it later. But we will see you next week with more videos. Thank you very much for joining us. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yes, infrared was the other one.